Guys, today we're going to talk about the new executive orders that are already affecting or have the potential to affect people with disabilities. And guys, these are not just abstract changes, they can affect access to care, where and how people live, what protections they have, and so much more. Let's talk about it. Okay, guys, so the first executive order is called Ending Crime and Disorder on America's Streets. And this executive order was signed July 24th, 2025. This order encourages civil commitment of people with mental health conditions, especially if they are unhoused or deemed to cannot care for themselves. It also pushes for reversing or terminating state and federal court precedents and consent decrees that limit institutionalization. Guys, why does this matter? It matters because people could be forced into institutions rather than receiving care in their communities. There are liberty and due process concerns, and there's risk of losing access to community-based services. So, guys, to me, this executive order is such a slap in the face to the progress that people with disabilities are constantly fighting for. So I'm going to read to you a case. It was called Olmsted versus LC. And Tommy Olmsted was the commissioner of the Georgia Department of Human Resources. He was defended, and LC refers to Lois Curtis, who, along with Elaine Wilson, they were two women with mental health and developmental disabilities. And they were both patients in a state run psychiatric hospital, and their legal team argued that they were being held in institutional care despite being cleared for community support. And guys, they won. So the Supreme Court ruled in 1999 that unjustified institutionalization of people with disabilities is a form of discrimination under the Americans with Disability Act. It requires states to provide services in the least restrictive setting possible, meaning people with disabilities have the right to live in their communities, not institutions, when appropriate. So, guys, the bill uses language like people that are homeless may pose risk to themselves or the public, or they cannot care for themselves. This language is very broad, and it could be used to institutionalize people with autism or intellectual disabilities or psychiatric conditions, even when they pose no threat. My son has autism. He does not need to be institutionalized. Community based services could be defunded, pushing families into crisis and removing alternatives to institutional care. And due process rights may be weakened, making it harder for individuals to challenge confinement or advocate for community living. So, guys, the executive order is going to be linked. So, please, by all means, read it for yourself. In my opinion, some of the language is very broad and can be left up to interpretation. So the thing is, I think that when politicians write laws, I mean, I haven't read every law, but um, most cases, the laws are written to protect people. But here's the thing. Politicians and lawyers, they're very versed in the law and they know how to bend the law. I'm going to show you what's happening in Alabama right now. Alabama is literally being sued by the Department of Justice. And let me show you why. So, guys, the federal government is suing Alabama for institutionalizing too many children with disabilities. It is stating that the children's civil rights are being violated. But again, guys, at the same time, we have this executive order. It pushes for broader civil commitment powers, and it makes it easier to institutionalize people deemed unable to care for themselves. So, guys, I ask you, which is it? Are we protecting vulnerable people from unnecessary confinement, or are we making it easier to lock them away? This contradiction, the Department of Justice stating that Alabama is locking people unnecessarily in institutions versus this executive order, which makes it easier. This shows you how laws, even those rooted in care, can be weaponized or misapplied. Because, guys, it's not just about what the law says, it's about who gets to interpret the law and whose freedom is at stake. Again, guys, let me know in the comments what you think. All right, guys. So the next executive order that I think could be problematic for people with disabilities is called Ending Radical and Wasteful Government DEI Programs and Preferencing. So let's take a look at just the gist of this program. I'm sorry, this executive order. So this executive order terminates all DEI, which is diversity, equity, and inclusion, and DEIA, which stands for diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility. Guys, that word, accessibility programs, including accessibility initiatives. This executive order eliminates positions like chief diversity officer and equity coordinators. It counsels equity related grants, contracts, and training. It removes DEIA goals from federal employee performance reviews. It The review and revise and employment practices and union contracts are to exclude DEI considerations. So, guys, let me know in the comments if you agree with these definitions of diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibilities. Diversity means recognizing our differences. Equity means removing barriers. Inclusion means making sure everyone belongs. Accessibility means disabled people can actually use what's offered. Let me know in the comments if you agree with these definitions. So, guys, I want to know what you thought about DEI and in this case, DEIA, because so many times people think it's about skin color, they think it's about gender, they think it's about ethnicity, and they darn sure think it's about sexual preference. But I want to show you a video, a real world example of how this executive order will impact people with disabilities. Let's take a look.
Is under threat. Earlier this week, President Trump signed an executive order ordering all federal employees who work in DEI programs to be placed on paid leave. Tonight, local disability advocates say this could present a challenge to their ongoing fight to ensure equal opportunities for all. News Channel 3's Luis Avila has more on why those disabilities could be especially affected.
Diversity, equity, and inclusion. Now, when we hear about that, we might think about gender and race, but disabilities are also a crucial part of DEI efforts. And with President Trump rolling back DEI in federal agencies, disability advocates like here at Desert Arc are concerned about what that could mean for opportunities for those with disabilities.
A sense of independence, and a sense of, gaining respect.
Reginald Lamont Davis II was born with cerebral palsy, a condition that affects movement and posture. But regardless of what some might consider a hindrance, he works as a clerical assistant for client services at Desert Arc, an organization that serves adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities and prepares some for the workforce.
I actually do believe that it's very important for people with disabilities to have equality in the workforce. I understand that it could be very difficult at times because a lot of the times we're overlooked or we're discriminated against.
But CEO of Desert Arc, Richard Balaco, says President Trump's executive order to reverse DEI at the federal level could set a dangerous precedent around hiring processes elsewhere.
I think what it could change is whether some of our clients get employed. That it could change.
Balaco says people with disabilities could feel the impacts of this even more because they're a group that is sometimes already left out of DEI conversations.
They've never been fully represented. We've often talked about DEI, to me, have long been the appearance, the color of a skin.
Guys, I wanted to pause the video for a moment to ask if you heard what this man said. He is a person that works with people with disabilities. And he said in many DEI conversations, people with disabilities aren't fully represented. Why? Because many people think that DEI is about appearance, the color of someone's skin. How very, very sad. Let's continue.
Of a skin.
He adds some of the divisive rhetoric around DEI stems from misunderstanding.
I really don't think our clients who get jobs are hired because there was some sympathy or waiting because they were disabled. I think it's largely the jobs that they do were not being able to be filled with somebody as good as they are.
But what he says should be clear to everyone is that everyone deserves the right to be treated equally.
I may have some difficulties. I may be limited to certain things, but I'm not incapable.
And Desert Arc is just one of the organizations that offer services for those with disabilities. For more information, visit our website, kesq.com. In Palm Desert, Luis Avila, News Channel 3.
Okay, guys, so you heard from someone that works with people who have disabilities. You heard from someone with a disability. And so, in terms of this executive order, DEIA isn't radical, it's responsible. It's how we make sure disabled people aren't left behind. And Executive Order 14151 threatens that. It has real world impact. There are going to be fewer investigations into ADA and Section 504 violations. There's going to be less accessible federal websites, buildings, and services. It could be. Disabled applicants may face more hiring discriminations. Absolutely. And community programs may lose funding if they're tied to equity goals. And again, this is because people think it's about skin color, and it's not. So, guys, let me know what you think about this executive order. Okay, guys, so the final executive order that we are going to discuss is called Restoring Equality of Opportunity and Meritocracy. And guys, this executive order it's not very long, but when I tell you it packs a punch, it is rolling back so many civil rights protections that it just makes you want to cry. Please do your research. But let's discuss this executive order. So, guys, this executive order's stated purpose is to emphasize equality of opportunity, not equal outcomes. It's treating each person as an individual rather than as a member of a demographic group. So, guys, here's what this executive order actually does. It eliminates disparate impact liability, a legal tool that lets us challenge policies that exclude disabled people, even if there's no obvious intent to discriminate. So it eliminates that. It revokes Title VI regulations used by agencies like HUD and the Federal Trade Commission to protect against systemic bias, and it tells federal agencies to stop enforcing laws that rely on disparate impact theory, including in housing, education, and employment. Okay, guys, that is my video about the executive orders that impact people with disabilities. Remember, guys, disability rights are civil rights, so please do your best to stay informed. And as usual, guys, I leave you with please protect your peace and your mental health at all costs and by any means necessary. Take care, guys.